Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. So actually had to wait till today to record this video because I worried that if I recorded it yesterday, people would think it was a joke. But I have officially returned to the dating scene. And to understand why, we have to go back a few weeks ago when I was on vacation in Grants, New Mexico. A lot of my viewers watched those videos. I had a great time, but more importantly, I did a lot of soul searching during that time that I never thought I would do. It was the first morning of my trip in New Mexico. I woke up and it hit me like a breath of fresh air that for the first time in almost a year, I woke up and my first thought was not, "What time is it?" And but rather, "What am I going to enjoy today? What am I going to eat today? What am I going to view today?" And maybe shoot a couple Peter Dislike shows or meet some locals here. What am I going to talk about to the locals over here? And the thought of what time it is didn't enter my mind at all. In fact, what's really funny is that New Mexico has daylight savings time. Arizona does not, and I almost for the whole trip I didn't even think about that. The only reason I thought about it was I wanted to go to a restaurant over there, and I was a little confused about what time they open. When I looked on it at Google Maps, it looked off, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, daylight savings time." I almost forgot. That's the only time I really thought about it. But I during my trip, I resolved that when I get back home, I'm going to see what I can do to free up some mental capacity because a lot of times the idea of where do I have to be in 2 hours? Can I finish my meal in 15 minutes because I got to get in my car, drive to work? Uh, my phone's going to ring any moment. Sometimes I have remote work, and sometimes students love to show up early. Is my Wi-Fi going to work? Sometimes all the busy work gets in the way of actually creative work being done. And so after I came home, I resolved to cut out some of the red tape. Long story short, I ended up having to find new work. My job at the tutoring center, some of these people are set in their own ways. I had the center director. She's, I want to say, a few years my senior, but she is very traditional in her views in terms of politics and family life. She had a lot of religious things to say during the Christmas season. I won't get too much into that. A traditionalist, and then we got this guy who handles the schedule. He's in his 70s. Forget about it. He's in his set ways, and even if you tell him about this great new invention that could potentially cut out a lot of busy work, he may or may not entertain the idea. Long story short, I had to find new work. Now, I was talking one day, I was venting about this to a friend of mine from another country. And after we talked about it, she actually cut the conversation short because she felt disgusted about our working conditions. And I gotta say, that one job wasn't even the worst job I've ever had. It wasn't even in the bottom half of all the worst jobs I've ever had. And even my friend from another country was grossed out by it. Well, she was mostly grossed out by the fact that we don't even have a kitchenette and we're expected to clean up in the bathroom and all that. And she said that she almost vomited as we were talking about it. Could we talk about something more pleasant? That's what she said in her own words. And it made me want to move out of the United States. Now, these last couple of weeks, I've been resolving to not worry too much if I'm going to be late for work. Eat first, zone out and eat, and then look at the clock. If I'm late, so be it. Apologize to the students later. I've learned it's a lot easier to apologize after you take something than to ask for it. A lot of times it really is. And you know what's happened? So this past week, I resolved to not think about the clock and just eat and then apologize to the students. Guess how many times I've had to apologize to any of my students? Zero. And I really mean it. I'm not saying zero in the way that Joe Biden said last year. It really was zero. And it just goes to show how much loyalty I have to the students when they won't reciprocate with me. And it made me want to leave the country. So I was talking to a friend of my friend, and before we knew it, our conversation got a little bit more involved than just meeting somebody new. And not only did I want to potentially get to know her and in the long run maybe inherit her citizenship, that was what I went into the conversation thinking. But as we talked, I realized that for the first time in a long time, I felt a deep sense of human connection, and I went to sleep really well. I slept very deeply that night. So the next morning, not only did I feel like I had a good meal with myself, I got to sleep very well, and I really felt like this is living. And for the first time in a long time, I felt that way. Now, yesterday, I was at a board game meetup, and I was talking to a girl there, and I got, I don't think she's interested in me, but that's okay. I used her as a little bit of target practice for when the real thing comes along. And once again, I came home and I had the deepest sleep I've ever had in a very, 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 very long time. And I once again returned to the dating world, but this time around, I think it's going to stick. I give myself a 30% chance of ending this current cycle with a marriage, a long term marriage. And the reason for that is that in my lifetime, I have, I even have a nickname for this idea. I tend to spend some amount of time in the dating world, and then I take some time to be by myself and digest all the lessons uh, from when I was dating. I call it a personal business cycle, uh, which is a spate of dating followed by a period where I uh, I am happily single. Now, in the past, going from the single part to the heterosexual world was usually very turbulent. Usually, it's the other direction that's not turbulent at all. Usually, the solo sexual world is usually just a continuation, a little bit of encore of the dating world, right? Wow, all those lessons, and now I get to enjoy my single life again. So usually going from single to going back to the dating world is much more turbulent. That's when I tend to have health problems, miss sleep, and binge eat, among all sorts of other. Sometimes lose my job during that time because I jeopardize my job to do whatever with the girl. But this time around, it's just the opposite. I'm finding a better job. I'm eating better. I'm sleeping better. It's weird. Normally, it's the other way around. It's going from the dating world to the single world where I usually do all these great things. It's so weird. The other thing that has changed is that before COVID, see, I first became happily single when I was 23 years old, about 10 years before COVID. Before COVID, I had three of these personal business cycles, three and a half. And since COVID, I've had three of those. So the cycles have gotten a whole lot shorter in recent times. But again, this one doesn't feel like it's a short term. Let's just play with it and then come back to it. It really doesn't. I'm starting to feel well again. And I'm starting to feel the human connectivity. That's why I waited till today to record. If I said this yesterday, I think most people would think I was joking. But this is serious. This is serious. And So yesterday, 2 nights ago, I started with a friend from another country because I wanted her citizenship. But then I realized it wasn't even her citizenship that I wanted. It was the human connectivity and the sense of belonging. And I actually got a good night of sleep, and I started to eat well again and all that. But I do want to also speak up for myself, right? The idea that the clock ticks 24 hours a day just because I have a gig work for 3 hours is just really frustrating for me. I'll have to think about how to speak up for myself in that regard. Um, and uh, the other thing I want to do is when I do eventually hook up with somebody to set the right boundaries. Part of the reason the golden rule says just date gold and silver. I know what you mean by about isolation. My wife has been in the Philippines for almost 2 years. It sucks. Well, it wasn't isolation that sucked. It was the fact that I I was eating. Nobody seemed to care about my plight. See, earlier today, I talked about how at my other workplaces, sometimes people kick me around because I'm single, and my colleagues sometimes, well, during COVID especially, my colleagues would ask me to donate my paid time off because a single guy, he doesn't need it, and I often felt pressured to do that. Well, today, yesterday at the board game meetup, I was talking to some of my friends there, and my friend related about a cruise he was going to go to for a month or so. And I'm not, cruises are not for me, but I wished him well. And I thought to myself, gee, there's no way I could go on a cruise like that because of my dietary restrictions. The last thing I want is to be thousands of miles away from civilization, speaking a foreign language, and not be able to find suitable food for me. And then it occurred to me, but gee, I don't see colleagues donating vacation time for me. Oh my God, because Andrew, he needs more vacation time because he can't find his food in Poland. No, but at the other side of the equation, my colleague who has a pregnancy issues or childcare issues, and but they ask for, because that's a lot more visible in our society, right? And so I was thinking about this, and nobody beats at my wavelength. Maybe the next time my colleague asks me to donate vacation time, I could say something to the effect of, well, congratulations on your newborn or whatever the situation is. It turns out you might not notice it, but I have some personal challenges myself. Congratulations, and see how that goes. I thought about it, and if you guys have any suggestions to clean that up a little bit, please feel free, because I don't want to delve into my invisible problems, right? And pregnancy, you can't hide that, right? But a food allergy, you don't necessarily have to tell everybody, right? I don't know. When I heard about my friend going on the cruise yesterday, it really made me stop and think about it. And so, not that I have a problem with him going on the cruise. It was just that I was thinking about, if I wanted to go on a cruise, I'd have to bring up all these accommodations, and gee, nobody would understand that. But my colleague who's pregnant or has a child with a problem, or their school has closed over COVID, that has a whole lot more visibility on what needs to be done, right? A food allergy and needing to take more time because you need to make accommodations doesn't have a heck of a lot of visibility in our society, right? That's the big problem, right? So I returned to the dating world after, well, I call them curry years, 2 curry years, a curry year being 138 days. So go watch my other video about that. I'm a geographic bachelor, so I get shafted on the leave schedule to go full on car work. Yeah, maybe it helped me a lot. Well, the point is that not everybody's matter, or I don't want to call it a disability, but difference is visible, right? Pregnancy is very visible. Um, a child who doesn't have a school to go to because of a pandemic, that's very visible. What else? Going to the hospital, very visible, right? But needing more time to take care of your personal needs because of a food allergy, that tends to slip under the radar. Not too many people can relate to it, right? Okay. All right. I guess I could do some fortune telling if I have my cards on me. I just recently ordered a Geiger counter because I'm thinking about transmuting some chemical elements. And when I do that, I guess we could use the Geiger counter as a little bit of a fortune telling device, or how many ticks it gets in 60 seconds or whatever that is, right? All right, let's do fortune telling with a deck of 5 alive cards. Can't wait for that Geiger counter. Zero, which I was just talking about earlier in this video, about how I Even though I quiet quit and tried to not look at the time, I was late 0 times going to work, right? Another 0. Maybe I really should quiet quit, right? 1. 3. 3. Well, I don't know if I should still say it's a lucky number. 3 was a lucky number when I was happily single last month because the one single individual getting accepted by a couple in society, right? 3 has become a lucky number for me. Hey, Golden Rule, why don't you quiet quit and stay and watch my video? 1. Death equals 21. 2. Maybe I really will meet the right person in my life. The trouble is, I don't want a romantic relationship. That's been the big problem for me is that, I have a very good analogy for not wanting a romantic relationship. Oh, earlier today on my way home, I almost got into a car accident. I'm living west of Phoenix right now. And on the way home on the commute, the sun goes right into your face. And my windshield was kind of dirty because I had just taken a road trip not long ago. I never really wiped it down. And I pull onto the highway, and oh my god, I cannot see anything. I can't even see where to get out of the highway to clean it up. And a lot of times I dive into the deep end of a relationship and it feels just like that. The girl wants romance. She wants to start a family almost immediately. And I don't even find I can't even see where the exits are, right? It made me think about that when I got on the highway today. Fortunately, a truck happened to pull in front of me, and he happened to block out the sun, and it was almost the right size. It felt like an eclipse of the truck in front of the sun, and so for a few miles, I got some reprieve from that. But then a car cut in front of me, and I gave the car that cut in front of me a dislike finger. But he probably doesn't realize why that was so frustrating for me. This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. The Peter Dislike Show. The Peter Dislike Show. The, the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.